ridiculous. Oh, that is scary. The truck is, oh my gosh. Holy smokes. Oh no. Yeah, that is completely crazy. Oh, there it is. I can't tell if it's coming back around or not.
December 23rd, 2015. 2 days before Christmas. In Holly Springs, Mississippi, a 7-year-old boy named Nicholas Pumroy is riding in his family's van, heading to his grandmother's house for the holidays. His little sister Julianne sits beside him. Their mother Ashley and stepfather Chris are in front, navigating Highway 7 through a sky that has turned the color of a fresh bruise. At that exact moment, 75 miles of fury is being born in the warm December air above Tate County. A monster that will stay on the ground for 75 minutes, touching 6 counties, crossing state lines, and rewriting the history of December tornadoes in the American South. By the time the sun sets on Christmas Eve, 13 people will be dead, 500 homes will be destroyed, and Nicholas Pumroy, that 7-year-old boy with the smile his family says made him who he was, will never open his Christmas presents. Here's the thing about December tornadoes. They are not supposed to happen like this. In all of recorded history, only 19 EF4 tornadoes have ever touched down in December in the United States. Only 2 EF5 tornadoes, the last one in 1957. But 2015 did not care about climatology. 2015 had something else in mind. This is the story of the Christmas nightmare. Let me tell you about El Niño. In the winter of 2015 to 2016, the Pacific Ocean was running a fever. Sea surface temperatures off the coast of South America had climbed to 2.3 degrees Celsius above normal, the strongest El Niño on record, tied with the infamous 1997 to 1998 event that spawned catastrophic weather around the globe. When the Pacific warms like that, it shifts the jet stream. It pushes that stream south across the United States. That jet stream becomes a highway, a screaming river of wind reaching 100 knots at 30,000 feet, and it drags storm systems across the country like a freight train. The Storm Prediction Center in Norman, Oklahoma saw it coming. Days out, their models were screaming. December 20th, December 21st, December 22nd. Each day, the picture grew clearer and more troubling. The forecasters knew what they were looking at. They had seen setups like this before, but in April, in May, during the heart of tornado season, when the atmosphere regularly produces the fuel and wind shear necessary for violent storms. But this was December. This was supposed to be winter. The atmosphere was not supposed to behave like this. CAPE, convective available. Potential energy is the fuel that storms burn. Think of it as gasoline in the tank of a storm system. And on December 23rd, that fuel was flooding northward from the Gulf of Mexico on the back of a screaming low-level jet stream that was pumping moisture into the southern states at unprecedented rates. By 6 in the morning, surface temperatures across the Mississippi Valley had already climbed into the mid-60s. Dew points, a measure of atmospheric moisture, were in the low 60s. These are numbers you expect in April. In May, not 2 days before Christmas. Not when people should be worried about frost on their windshields. Not tornadoes. The National Weather Service in Memphis launched their morning weather balloon at 6 a.m. When the data came back, forecasters exchanged glances. The cap, that lid of warm air that normally suppresses storm development, was already eroding. By afternoon, it would be gone entirely. And when that cap broke, when the lid came off, the atmosphere would explode. At 7 a.m. Central Time, the Storm Prediction Center issued their Day 1 outlook. A 15% hatched tornado probability stretched across the Mississippi Valley, northern Louisiana, eastern Arkansas, northwestern Mississippi, and western Tennessee. The hatching meant something ominous, a significant risk of strong tornadoes, EF2 or greater. The kind that destroy homes, the kind that kill. But the models kept getting worse. By 2 p.m., the Storm Prediction Center expanded the threat zone to central Tennessee, northwestern Alabama, and central Kentucky. The atmosphere was priming itself for violence on a scale rarely seen in December. Meteorologists were watching in real time as one of the most dangerous, severe weather setups of the year materialized on the day before Christmas Eve. And then came the watch that made meteorologists' blood run cold. It was a particularly dangerous situation. Tornado Watch, number 559. The dangerous designation is rare. Particularly dangerous situation means only about 3% of tornado watches ever receive that designation. It is the highest level of alarm the Storm Prediction Center can issue. It means forecasters expect violent, long-track tornadoes. It means significant, life-threatening tornadoes are not just possible, they are likely. It means people are going to die if they do not take shelter. The watch covered northern Louisiana, western Arkansas, northwestern Mississippi, and western Tennessee. It was valid until 10 p.m. Central Time. It was the first particularly dangerous situation tornado watch since June of 2014, and only the second December particularly dangerous situation watch in history. In Memphis, in Jackson, in Nashville, meteorologists interrupted Christmas Eve preparations with urgent broadcasts. They pointed at maps showing a classic triple point setup, a cold front ejecting from the Texas Panhandle, a warm front from the Ohio River Valley, and a stationary front over western Kansas, all converging over northwestern Missouri. These three boundaries were creating what meteorologists call a warm sector, a zone of extreme instability where warm, moist air from the Gulf was colliding with cold, dry air from the Rockies. The warm sector between those fronts would become a killing ground. Here's what made this setup particularly insidious: the timing. Storms would fire in the afternoon and evening hours, moving from west to east across the Mississippi Valley. They would be moving fast, some supercells clocking nearly 70 miles per hour, driven by those 100-knot winds screaming across the mid-levels of the atmosphere. There would be precious little time between warning and impact. Minutes, not hours. They would be coming for people who were wrapping presents, baking Christmas cookies, traveling to see family, people whose minds were on holiday joy, not weather apps, people who had Christmas trees in their living rooms, not weather radios, people who were thinking about what time dinner would be ready, not whether they had a safe place to shelter from a tornado. The atmosphere didn't care about Christmas. The atmosphere was ready to explode. 2:53 p.m. Central Standard Time, December 23rd, 2015. The first significant tornado of the outbreak touches down 3 miles south-southeast of Duncan, Mississippi, in Bolivar County. It is an EF3, winds of 160 miles per hour, and it will stay on the ground for over an hour, carving a 63-mile path across 4 counties. It is a warning shot, a preview of what is coming. But that is just the opening act. 70 miles to the northeast, something far more terrible is being born. 4:10 p.m., 1 mile north of Tyro in Tate County, Mississippi. A supercell thunderstorm that has been rotating for nearly an hour finally drops its funnel to the ground. At first, it is weak. EF0 damage. A few trees down. Nothing special. Nothing that would make the history books. But here's the thing about supercells. They feed on instability. They are like living organisms, constantly adapting, constantly feeding, constantly growing. And on this December afternoon, there is more instability than any December afternoon has any right to possess. More fuel, more shear, more of everything a tornado needs to grow from a minor inconvenience into a catastrophic killer. Within minutes, the tornado is intensifying, rapidly, violently. The funnel darkens as it pulls debris from the ground, soil, trees, pieces of homes. It widens. It accelerates. What started as an EF0 becomes an EF1, then an EF2, then an EF3, all in a matter of minutes. The National Weather Service in Memphis is watching on radar. They see the velocity signature, the telltale sign of rotation, growing stronger with each scan. They see the debris ball appearing on their screens, indicating that the tornado is lifting massive amounts of material into the air. At 4:17 p.m., they issue a tornado emergency. A tornado emergency. The most urgent warning the National Weather Service can issue. Not a watch. Not even a warning. An emergency. It means a large, violent tornado is confirmed on the ground and heading directly for a populated area. It means this is not a drill. It means lives are at immediate risk. It means if you are in the path of this storm and you do not take shelter immediately, you may die. Holly Springs, Mississippi. Population 7,500. A town with deep roots, founded in 1836, once home to over 60 antebellum homes that survived the Civil War. A town where people know each other by name, where they gather at the courthouse square, where they shop at local businesses that have been family-owned for generations. A town where Christmas means something, where Christmas Eve is for family, for church, for tradition. The tornado does not care about history. The tornado does not care about tradition. The tornado is coming. At 4:17 p.m. on Highway 7, south of Holly Springs. The Pumroy family is running late. Chris and Ashley are in the front of their van. Nicholas, 7 years old, and his little sister Julianne are in the back. They are heading to grandmother's house for Christmas Eve, a 20-minute drive that should be uneventful. Just another trip down Highway 7, a road they have driven hundreds of times. But the sky has turned ugly. Greenish-black clouds swirl overhead like something out of a nightmare. The radio is screaming warnings. Tornado emergency. Take shelter immediately. This is a life-threatening situation. Chris sees it first. Through the windshield, across the fields, a massive, churning funnel, dark as death, crossing Highway 7 directly in front of them. It is enormous, violent, unmistakable. He pulls over. There is nowhere to go. No underpass nearby. No ditch deep enough. Just open fields and that monster bearing down on them. And then the tornado hits. The van is picked up like a toy. 1,500 pounds of steel and glass airborne. The family is thrown into the void, thrown out of the vehicle, scattered across the field like leaves in the wind. When the winds subside, Nicholas Pumroy lies motionless in the field. His parents have broken backs. His sister Julianne has severe facial injuries. They are scattered across the landscape like discarded toys, separated by dozens of yards, calling out to each other through the rain and the darkness. A woman named Jennifer Tipler, an emergency room nurse from Methodist Hospital in Olive Branch, is driving nearby. She has just been sheltering in the back of the Holly Springs Walmart, listening to the tornado roar overhead like a freight train, feeling the building shake, praying it would hold. Now she emerges to see the devastation, the broken vehicles, the debris scattered across Highway 7, the bodies. She runs to Nicholas. She is a nurse. She has seen trauma before, but she can see immediately that he is gone. His injuries are too severe. There is nothing anyone can do. But she does not leave him alone. She got down on the ground and lay next to him so he was not alone. She put a blanket over him. They all held hands and said a prayer for the family. She stays with him. This stranger, This nurse who did not have to stop, who could have kept driving, who had her own family waiting at home. She stays with a dying 7-year-old boy on the side of Highway 7 2 days before Christmas and makes sure he is not alone when he passes. She says it was probably the worst day of her life. She felt devastated that somebody was not going to have their child this year for Christmas. Nicholas Pumroy, 7 years old, full of life. His family says his smile was what made him who he was. They say he was excited about Christmas, about seeing his grandmother, about the presents under the tree. He never got to open his presents. 4:20 p.m. Holly Springs proper. The tornado is now a high-end EF3 approaching EF4 intensity. Winds exceeding 150 miles per hour. And it is tearing through the heart of Holly Springs, following a northeast track that takes it directly through residential neighborhoods, through churches, through the very heart of this small Mississippi town. The Beverly Chapel CME Church is leveled. Walls collapse, the roof disappears, pews are scattered across the street. Homes are ripped from their foundations, leaving only concrete slabs and memories. Trees that have stood for a century are snapped like matchsticks, their massive trunks splintered, their roots torn from the earth. At the Holly Springs Motorsports Park, a drag racing facility on the edge of town, the destruction defies comprehension. A 30,000-pound motorhome, 15 tons of steel and aluminum, is thrown more than 100 meters through the air before slamming back to earth. A 25-foot steel-reinforced concrete wall, part of the drag strip, is broken in half, its rebar sheared like string. Aluminum grandstands that were bolted to concrete foundations are blown 500 yards. A dragster and its tow vehicle are carried 200 meters and deposited in a crumpled heap. The National Weather Service team that surveys the damage later will find something that stops them cold. A drinking straw embedded completely through a tree trunk, not stuck in the bark, through it. The forces involved are almost unimaginable. Wind speeds exceeding 150 miles per hour, carrying debris at velocities that turn ordinary objects into weapons. Terry Jabbo Forsyth owns the track. He and his wife Carol have owned it for years, poured their lives into it, built it from nothing into one of the premier drag racing facilities in the region. It is their life's work, their retirement, their legacy. They should have been home when the tornado hit. Their house sits right on the grounds of the drag strip. Had they been there, they would have died. The house is completely destroyed. Not damaged, destroyed. Gone. Nothing left but the foundation. Fate, or providence, depending on your beliefs, intervened. A trip to the dog groomer saved their lives. For the first time ever, they had taken their dogs to get groomed for Christmas photos. They were on their way back when the tornado hit. But everything else is gone. $6 million in damage. The track destroyed. The grandstands gone. Their home obliterated. The only vehicle they have left is Carol's car. The only clothes they own are what they are wearing. Days later, Terry will learn something extraordinary. His mother's obituary, which he kept in his Bible as a bookmark, was found 70 miles away in Parsons, Tennessee, in the yard of his mother's first cousin. His mother's obituary, carried 70 miles by a tornado, ending up in the yard of family. The odds are astronomical. The Bible itself was never found. The tornado does not stop at Holly Springs. It keeps going northeast, always northeast, feeding on the unstable air, maintaining its strength, sometimes intensifying as it encounters pockets of even greater instability. 4:35 p.m. The storm crosses into Benton County. Here, in the rolling hills around the community of Canaan, the tornado reaches its peak intensity, an enhanced Fujita scale rating of EF4 with winds of 170 miles per hour. This is the second highest rating on the enhanced Fujita scale. Only an EF5 is stronger. A large, well-built two-story home near Hamilton, The kind of home that should provide some protection with brick walls and a solid foundation is swept completely off its foundation. Not damaged, not destroyed, swept away. The concrete slab is left bare, scoured clean by winds like a horizontal sandblaster, removing paint, removing shingles, removing anything that is not bolted down. Pavement is ripped from roads, leaving bare earth. Vehicles are mangled beyond recognition, cars wrapped around trees, trucks flipped and crushed. Trees are not just broken, they are debarked, stripped of their bark by flying debris traveling at 150 miles per hour. The landscape looks like a war zone. On Hamilton Road near Faulkner, Max and Ellen Croxton are in their home. Max is 69, Ellen is 67. They have been married for decades. They built a life together in these quiet Mississippi hills and raised their family here, watching their grandchildren grow up in the same hills. When the tornado comes, there is nowhere to hide. Their home is completely destroyed. Both Max and Ellen die. A husband and wife, together in life, together in death. On County Church Road, in the central part of Benton County, 4 people are in a home when the tornado strikes. William E. Crawford, 67. Patricia G. Williams, 58. Michael A. Nunnally, 47. And Tasha Brown. The home is obliterated. The walls collapse. The roof disappears. The structure is reduced to scattered debris across the landscape. Crawford and Williams are found quickly, their bodies recovered from the wreckage. But Nunnally and Brown are missing, simply gone, swept away by the tornado. For days, a search and rescue team of 50 to 60 people combs through the wreckage, looking for any sign of the missing. They search through debris piles. They search the surrounding fields. They search the woods. Family members join the search, desperate for closure. On Saturday morning, December 26th, the day after Christmas, the search teams finally find them. Both are dead. Benton County's final toll is 6 dead. 77 homes destroyed or damaged. This is one of the deadliest tornado events in the county's history. 5:25 p.m., McNairy County, Tennessee. The tornado has been on the ground for 75 minutes. It has traveled 75 miles from Tate County, Mississippi, across Marshall County, through Benton County, into Tippah County, then across the state line into Hardeman and McNairy counties in Tennessee. 75 minutes, 75 miles, one continuous path of destruction. At its widest, it has been nearly 3/4 of a mile across, 1,300 yards of rotating fury. A tornado so large that people on the edges of the funnel could not see the other side. So powerful that it maintained EF3 and EF4 intensity for most of its path. Now, finally, as it crosses Highway 45 south of Selmer, Tennessee, the tornado begins to weaken. The circulation lifts. The funnel dissipates. The monster dies. But the day is not over. 6:18 p.m., Perry County, Tennessee. 100 miles to the northeast, another tornado is touching down. This one is smaller, an EF2 tornado with winds of 115 miles per hour. Not as strong as the Holly Springs monster. Still, it is deadly. Still capable of destroying homes. Still capable of killing. It is heading for a quiet rural area along the Buffalo River, where Antonio and Ann Yzaguirre have made their retirement home on Neighbors Lane. Antonio is 70. Ann is 69. They moved to this peaceful stretch of Tennessee to enjoy their golden years together, to fish in the Buffalo River, to watch the seasons change from their porch. 10 days earlier, on December 13th, they celebrated their 36th wedding anniversary. 36 years of marriage. 36 years of building a life together. The tornado hits their home directly. The structure explodes. That is the word the Perry County Sheriff uses. Explodes. One moment it is there. The next moment it is gone. Antonio and Ann Izaguirre die together, in each other's arms, in the home they built for their retirement. Weeks later, a woman named Sharon Thompson is walking through her yard, 40 miles from where the Izaguirres died. She finds a single piece of paper caught in the grass. She picks it up, curious. It is a will. Antonio and Ann's will, blown 40 miles through the Tennessee sky. The family had been searching through debris for days, looking for the couple's final wishes, looking for any paperwork that survived. They found photo albums. They found pieces of furniture, but they could not find the will. Now, miraculously, impossibly, the will has found its way to a stranger's yard, 40 miles away. Sharon searches online, finds news stories about the Izaguirres, makes contact with their family, and returns the will. It is a small grace in the midst of tragedy. A reminder that even in the worst moments, sometimes miracles happen. 6:55 p.m. in Wayne County, Tennessee. One more tornado. One more story. This one is stronger. An EF4 with winds of 157 miles per hour. It touches down east of the Hardin-Wayne County line, 3 miles southwest of a tiny community called Lutts. Lutts, Tennessee. Population, maybe a few hundred souls if you count generously. A post office, a church, a few scattered homes along rural roads. The kind of place where everybody knows everybody. Where church on Sunday is the social event of the week. The tornado hits Lutts directly. The post office, the heart of any small rural community, the place where people gather to collect their mail and catch up on local gossip, is completely destroyed. The Lutts United Methodist Church is leveled. Its walls collapsed. Its steeple gone. Multiple homes are swept from their foundations. But here's the remarkable thing. Despite the destruction of more than 20 buildings, despite 6 injuries, despite people trapped in mobile homes and storm shelters, no one in Lutts dies. Not one person. It is, residents say, a Christmas miracle. Christmas Eve, 2015. While families across America are hanging stockings and wrapping last-minute presents, the hospitals of the Mid-South are receiving the broken. Bruce Streeter was in his Holly Springs home when the tornado hit. He heard limbs hitting the roof and ran for the bathroom, but Mother Nature was relentless. The tornado tore his home off its foundation. He was slammed into a tree, crushing his pelvis. He spent weeks in the hospital, then months in rehabilitation. He was in a wheelchair for 3 months before he could walk again. The Pumroy family spends Christmas in the hospital. Chris and Ashley, Nicholas's parents, both have broken backs. They will have to learn to walk again. Little Julianne needs facial surgery, with more surgeries likely to come. Nicholas, the boy with the smile, is gone. Christmas morning dawns gray and cold over the devastated communities of the Mississippi Valley. In Holly Springs, the National Guard has established a perimeter around the hardest hit areas. Utility crews are working around the clock to restore power to 4,000 customers who lost electricity when the tornado brought down lines. In Benton County, search teams are still looking for Michael Nunnally and Tasha Brown. They will not find them for another day. And in Lutts, where the post office and church lie in ruins, residents are counting their blessings. No one died. It does not feel like much of a Christmas, but it could have been so much worse. In Holly Springs, something unexpected happens. The Marine Corps arrives at a Red Cross center with donated toys. Dozens of children who lost their homes, who lost family members, who lost everything, show up on Christmas morning to receive gifts. The image is heartbreaking and hopeful in equal measure. Children whose worlds have been destroyed, clutching new toys, trying to find some thread of normalcy in the chaos. The final numbers tell part of the story. 38 confirmed tornadoes occurred between December 23rd and December 25th. 1 EF4 tornado, 2 EF3 tornadoes. 13 people died across Mississippi, Tennessee, and Arkansas. In Mississippi alone, more than 700 homes were damaged or destroyed across 7 counties. In Marshall County, where Holly Springs sits, 200 homes were hit. In Tippah County, 145. In Benton County, 77. The Holly Springs-Ashland EF4 tornado caused $10.9 million in damage. The total economic cost of the outbreak ran into the tens of millions. Governor Phil Bryant declared a state of emergency on December 24th. On January 4th, 2016, President Obama signed a major disaster declaration, releasing federal funds for Benton, Coahoma, Marshall, Quitman, and Tippah counties. The volunteer response was immediate and overwhelming. Operation BBQ Relief deployed to Holly Springs within 48 hours. They served 1,800 meals over 2 days, hot food for displaced residents and exhausted first responders who were working 18-hour shifts in the cold. Samaritan's Purse set up a base at Ashland Baptist Church. They brought heavy-duty tarps, chainsaws, and generators, the tools of disaster recovery. Between 150 and 200 volunteers fanned out across Benton County, covering exposed roofs, checking on livestock, and searching for survivors. Southern Baptist Convention Disaster Relief sent chainsaw teams from across Mississippi to clear debris. They worked for free, sleeping in church basements and eating donated food, driven by nothing but a desire to help their neighbors. Here's the thing about small towns in the rural South. They don't give up easily. 6 weeks after the tornado, residents of Lutts, Tennessee were still living in temporary trailers, 41 days out of their homes, fighting insurance companies and waiting for supplies. The post office had not reopened. Customers had to drive to Collinwood, 20 minutes away, to pick up their mail. But they were rebuilding, slowly, stubbornly, one board at a time. In Holly Springs, the drag racing community rallied around Terry and Carol Forsyth. When Terry surveyed the destruction of Holly Springs Motorsports Park, $6 million in damage, nearly everything destroyed, he thought it was over. How do you come back from this? How do you rebuild when you have lost everything? But then something remarkable happened. The drag racing community accomplished the entire cleanup at zero cost. People came from everywhere, from Arkansas, from Tennessee, from Louisiana, people they had never met, and they worked for free. They cleared debris. They rebuilt walls. They donated materials. In April 2016, less than 4 months after the tornado, Holly Springs Motorsports Park reopened. Against all odds, against all expectations, it reopened. Years passed. Seasons turned. The scars on the land began to heal, even if the scars on the heart remained. In Holly Springs, a cross stands near Old Highway 7, marking the spot where Nicholas Pumroy died. People drive past it every day. You never forget something like that. You can't. Bruce Streeter, the man who was thrown into a tree, who crushed his pelvis, who spent months learning to walk again, was still living in Holly Springs. December 23rd comes around every year, and he remembers. He remembers the sound, the feeling, the fear. But he is still here. He made it. A lot of people did not. So he tries to be grateful. Here is what I want you to understand about the Christmas nightmare of 2015. It was not just a weather event. It was not just statistics. 38 tornadoes, 13 dead, $10.9 million in damage. It was people, families, communities. It was Nicholas Pumroy, 7 years old, who should have grown up to do something wonderful with his life. It was Max and Ellen Croxton, married for decades, who died together in their home. It was Antonio and Ann Izaguirre, who had just celebrated their 36th wedding anniversary, who had moved to the Tennessee countryside to enjoy their retirement. It was Jennifer Tipler, the nurse who lay down next to a dying child on Christmas Eve so he would not be alone. It was Terry and Carol Forsyth who lost everything and rebuilt anyway. It was the people of Holly Springs, of Ashland, of Lutts, of Perry County who did not ask to be tested, but who passed the test anyway. December 23rd, 2015, changed the weather history books. It was the largest December tornado outbreak in Middle Tennessee history. It produced the first December tornadoes ever recorded in Perry County, Hickman County, Wayne County, Lewis County, Maury County, DeKalb County, and Smith County. Meteorologists are still studying the atmospheric conditions that made it possible, the role of El Niño, the exceptional moisture transport from the Gulf, and the 100-knot jet stream that drove the storms northeast at terrifying speeds. But the survivors do not need to understand the meteorology. They just need to live with the memory. There is a line from a prayer that Jennifer Tipler remembers from that terrible Christmas Eve. A prayer, she said, holding hands with strangers over the body of a 7-year-old boy. She does not remember all the words, just the feeling. The sense that in the darkest moment, in the absolute worst moment, people found each other, held each other, and refused to let each other face the nightmare alone. That is what survived the Christmas nightmare of 2015. Not the buildings, not the drag strip, not the post offices or the churches. Those can all be rebuilt. What survived was something deeper, something unbreakable. My greatest gift on Christmas morning was my little girl. And to think there is a parent out there who does not have their kid is terrible. But I was there for him, for Nicholas. He was not alone, and that is all I could give him.